Brisbane, Australia. This is episode 93 of The Normal Works, a podcast dedicated to improving the competitive 40k experience. I'm Dineeth, and today we are joined by the Brisbane Warbosses, Nathan.
Green is best, boys.
And St. Nicholas himself. Nick, how you doing?
Ho, 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 bitches.
All right, so on the gates of the recent Ork release, the new Codex coming out, I'd like to, we wanted to get these two boys on. They've been passionate Ork players through and through. Nathan, you played them through since pretty much 8th edition, and Nick, you started playing fairly competitively last year with Orcs and Sisters, and it's really cool to have you boys on. Nathan, you've been on the show before, hey? You're on for the
yeah. My two green loves are Gorse Energy and Greenspin. So I, in tradition of me, once a new Codex comes out, I hop quickly between the two. So even though, unfortunately, it isn't fully out, given a few issues around the shipments, but we do have full access to the rules, which means we can produce a bit of content on everything that's coming out of the Beast Snagger box, which I think Nick was lucky enough to pick up a copy.
Yeah, I snagged one. Which is pretty hectic. I was pretty excited about that, but Orcs are my main love. I think I started playing them because of the conversion opportunities and things like that. I'm a big passionate fan for that kind of gear, but they're just so fun. Even though I tried to play Sisters, there was too much faith. I can't do it.
So, I guess we'll dive straight into it in a moment, but these two boys have had a good look at the book. I have minimal exposure to the new Ork book, so you guys are going to take me for a wild ride and show me what it's all about. But Nathan, do you want to start off with the big changes?
Sure, Dineeth. So the main thing that has probably changed the most about the book is, along with not a lot of 9th edition codexes, it's probably pivoted a little bit away from auras and data sheets to some army-wide abilities, and sort of the main one that's eye-catching, which a few people would have seen on Warhammer Community, was the big change to the War ability. The two changes to that is, if a war boss or a speed boss is your warlord, you'll either get one of two abilities. For warlords, your war boss, you'll get the ability to advance and charge all your core and character units. Doesn't matter about clan. And you also get +1 to your attack. And then that benefit gets called in your command phase. And then going into your next turn, that advance and charge ability leaves, but you still get the +1 attack. And usually a lot of the war bosses and speed bosses, if they're your war boss, that's what you'll get. And then speed bosses, like a Deathkiller Wartrike, you'll get advance and charge on all your... advance and shoot on all your assault weapons without penalty. You'll get an additional AP1 to your shooting. And then also you will get... Ork and vehicle biker units get an additional shot with DACA weapons, which is another change about the book that we'll go into. But and then obviously, if you're running the big boss himself, Gaz, you get both abilities. But I think that people mainly relied on the advance and charge from that war boss aura in the previous codex. Now you don't really need to rely on that for the Ork speed, and especially the one that catches my eye is the advance and charge, because now you can kind of play all over the table without having that close character support, and it just makes the army a lot faster and doesn't have to play so much in a nucleus.
Yeah, is that like a once per game declare ability?
Yeah, so it's declared in your command phase, basically any turn that you'd like, and it lasts for that second turn with the slightly reduced ability. So, so it's a kind of cool mechanic, because unlike, let's say, my other army, Necrons with the command protocols, which we all know how powerful.
They're great, dude.
Those have been.
I heard AdMech copied them for their cannicles because they're so strong.
They did copy them and then did a much better job, much like when someone steals your assignment in high school and improves on it. But the Ork one is fully in the player's hands, and they can dictate that going into the game. And to be honest, given the army's sort of slow speed on a lot of the infantry models, being able to take an Ork character unit, and we'll get into how powerful some of these characters have gotten, or the core unit, which now includes bikers, which makes them quite fast indeed if you're going to be able to advance and charge them. It really just gives you the ability to dictate the game, and much like Drukhari, when you need the advance and charge, you can really see the power when you want to collapse all on your opponent.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like it sounds like a Kayun or Montcar from Tau, right? You just pick the turn and you go. That's really cool. What do you reckon, Nick? Like, how are you feeling about this compared to what they previously had?
Yeah, I think like some of the limitations I've found, like I run very traditionally heavy buggy lists, kind of eschewing the boys. I don't really like moving around that many models. Like you often found, especially with the density of terrain that we do play on, and it's leaning more towards that, right? Like if you look at what's coming up from GW, like having to surround all these buggies around this one poor little bastard of a war boss trying to chuck out a 6-inch aura, it was just nearly impossible sometimes. So to have the ability to, as Nate said, dictate the game anywhere on the board, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's gonna be good to see. All right, you guys ready to dive into the clans?
Yeah, like before we jump in, I reckon like the one thing I want to address something because I've seen a lot of online commentary about a few facets of this. I actually think it's a really balanced book. Something that I've always loved about playing Orcs is they're a bit of a gutsy army. Like, you know, you can't really blame the dice because you've got to plan for the dice to be shit. Like if you're not, you're playing the wrong army, right? So when you get a W with an Orc army, you feel good because you're like, yes, like my strat worked. I was gunning. And I think they've done an incredible job of making all of the clans really viable for how you want to play. Whereas previously, you could make different things work. Like there was obviously some Horde lists in America doing well as Goths, but Skulls were super prevalent, Death Skulls with their infantry obsec, and that was pretty much it. Now there's just so much more variability based off what you want to play and what units you like. So I think that's exceptional. I just wanted to shout that out because there's heaps to be frustrated over, but yeah.
Do we have to pour some out for Mufasa, the custom stomper, or are we good, mate?
Everything the light touches, mate. The custom stomper, listen, Forge World, I don't know where that's at. Orcs have some really good Forge World units. I was talking to Nathan about this, that, you know, the Cannon Wagon, Biker Boss from Mars, he's a champion. And then obviously Mufasa, the Forge World stomper. The new stomper's not bad, though. It's got a bit. It's juicy.
Yeah, all right.
Hefty 200-point discount. So the days of the Stomper haven't ended, and wait a couple of weeks for that Forge World keyword FAQ, mate. And Mufasa may ride again, just not with full rerolls and 5+ Daka to table my entire army in 2 turns, as we found with your last game on the old Codex last week. I was glad to see that the full rerolls for vehicles spell did not make it into this book because so Orcs maybe aren't the shooting army that they once were with, I guess, early in the old book we had the 25 mobbed up looters or 15 Bad Moon tank busters, or later on as Nick saw the custom stomper. But I think there is still, as he was saying, a lot of different ways you can play this book, and there's a lot of different strategies available. If you like running 170 models because you're a masochist, you can do that. If you like running 12 vehicles and just having a great time and playing all over the table, there's that for you as well, and everything in between.
Sick.
Completely agree. And I think like if you are currently an Orc player, expect to be disappointed by something in the book. Like it's going to happen. There's going to be a change that you're like, oh man, that's gutting. But like unless you're the kind of person who like you drop your toast and it always lands like fucking face down, then just get over it. Like there's going to be so many things in this book that are just really good. So yeah, it's heaps of goodness.
Yeah, nice. And it sounds like the Sisters book when it came out, right? Like, there's a lot of people unhappy about a few things, but overall it still has a lot of power, a lot of good stuff in it, a lot of meat to the bone. I'm just really excited for all these metaphors that Nick's going to throw out this episode. You know, I've just been waiting for it, man. I've just let these two boys essentially plan the whole thing. We've got a little run sheet, and you guys have broken it up into brutal and cunning.
I like to think that that Nick is Gork. He's all BDE. He's all up in your face. He all likes to play very aggressive. And I, well, to be honest, because it's the only one left, I'm a little bit more common. But we will sort of hand off different rules throughout the book in different areas of the book that we want to talk about, and we want to sort of split it between what's super aggro and what's maybe a bit of a sleeper, and what's something that you can sort of a bit more strategic And there's definitely a lot in this book, and it, to be honest, really excited. I'm keen to get into it.
Yeah, all right, let's hit it. All right, who's taking Brutal?
You want to talk about your goths, mate?
Yeah.
Mate, so the clans, unlike a few other books, we've still only got the big sort of 7 clans, I think, overall. So the 7 named clans, and as with most books, you get sort of the clan culture. If you have basically a full detachment, the warlord trait, the relic, and the specific stratagem. Interesting change with this book, which I guess is their sort of restriction on monofaction, is that your warlord's clan is the only one you can use the clan specific strat and relic for.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
if you mix, you can buy their extra warlord trait and you can gain their clan culture, but you can't use their relic and their warlord trait, which basically splits some of the clans into being a great primary detachment and then being a good secondary detachment, depending on what you get from their clan culture and warlord trait compared to what you get from their relic and strat.
Yeah, wow.
So it's a slightly different way to build the army, and it's at first it's a bit of a shock, but like there's some really cool ones in here. And as Nick was saying, I'll take Brutal. So first, I'm just going to take the Goths. So this is Gazgul's clan. Their trait is no mucking about. So anytime a model with this culture makes a melee attack, an unmodified roll of 6 scores an additional hit. And any time a model with this culture makes a melee attack, if it charged or heroically intervened, add 1 to the strat characteristic. So given we're already getting T5 boys, why not make them strength 5 as well? And to be honest, adding a point of strength on almost any points of this book, especially like even for the big man himself, is pretty awesome. And I'll come back to that the exploding 6s, because the strat actually makes them exploding 5s. So this one is probably your best if you like running Gaz and 150 boys. If you like running aggro melee units, this is the clan for you. The big thing that sort of changes with this clan trait is actually Gazgul himself as well, because his aura is full rerolls to hit, so not just failed hits, full rerolls to hit. And given the access you can get to +1 to hit in this book, that exploding 5 strat, you can get a lot of hits with Gazgul, with Mega Knobs, with boys, with any other of the Smash characters in this book, because given it's rerolling hits, not failed hits, if you're hitting on 2s, you just reroll everything that isn't 5s and 6s, and you get about 133% conversion rate.
That's excellent. Yeah, because you can just fish for those 5s and 6s if you're hitting on 2s. Like
yeah, man.
It's better to keep rolling. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty awesome as a Goth trait. I think it's a big buff because you basically get the old Scar Boys stratagem on there, and the stratagem now buffs them massively. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this one for Ork Boys, Mega Knobs. Some of the stuff you can do with the characters in this book, which we'll get to, this helps them out a lot. But I might let Nick take one of the more cunning clans now.
Yeah, I think like some of the things that I've really enjoyed in reading through this book is just some of the tech we've got access to. Like if you're checking out like Blood Axes, previously they were, I don't think I've ever seen anyone play Blood Axes, like, you know, unless you're playing like a role-playing game or dipping your toes into the Crusade, you know, which is wicked, but not what we're here for. They really got some buffs. So the Blood Axe culture is each time a ranged attack is made against a unit with this culture, if the attack is more than 18 away, they get the treated as having the benefits of light cover. So a really nice way to give things like vehicles, biker units, actual light cover, which takes them to like a 3-up save, which means that a lot of, you know, things are all of a sudden not just like a las cannon, right? You know, you're not going to just, that's -3, right?
Yeah, -3.
Yeah. So that's not going to shear it straight in half, which is pretty cool. So that's nice to hear. And then also units in this culture are eligible to shoot or declare a charge with, but not both, in a turn which they fell back. So being able to like yeet units up, tag important things, and then fall back and charge or shoot, just a lot of movement tricks there, which I'm a pretty big fan of. But they start to get a little bit sexier when you look at their warlord trait, their relic, and the stratagem. Their warlord trait is essentially at the end of the deploy forces step, you choose any 3 Blood Axe units, and if the mission uses strat reserves, you can pop them into strategic reserves without spending any CP. So if you are one of these meta chasing Reddit frothers and you are looking at some of these pig rigs going, I want to send a couple of these big fat squealers up the board, you can deploy them as aggressive as you want, and then just chuck them into strat reserves, and then fucking turn 2 or 3, they are pumping onto the battlefield. That is unreal. Like, that can save you like 6 CP. How good is that?
Wow. And look, we were talking about this a couple of days ago, Nick, how like they almost got it. Like they almost hit the mark with this Warlord trait. But I believe it's before you determine who's going first and second, right?
Yeah, it would have been so good. Like that's kind of, Nathan and I were talking about this. It's a little bit of the trend of this book. Like, there's a few stratagems and things like that that are almost crazy competitive, but they've just dialed it back a little bit. Obviously, Ramshackle's very overpowered, so you've got to balance Ramshackle out somehow, you know? All those autocannons that are crying in autocannon. Anyway.
Do you want to quickly mention Ramshackle, Nick, given you've mentioned the buggies a couple of times on this one, and to be honest, fallback and shoot is pretty massive for some of them. So what's the big change with Ramshackle? Because it used to just be a truck could shrug off a las cannon on a 1, but I think it's a lot more prevalent now.
Yeah, well, it's just going to apply to a lot more. It's just a lot more like shooting, really. Like it's going to be a lot more. I was trying to actually pull up the actual. Here it is here. So I've got the actual thing here. Each time an attack is allocated to this model, unless that attack has a strength characteristic of 8 or more, subtract 1 from the damage. So, you know, they're essentially Death Guard for anything up to strength 8, which is pretty tidy. So that's
especially given some of the discounts some of the buggies did get in this book. Like, it's pretty aggressive how some of these buggies have been costed.
Oh, mate, they are criminally undercosted. I am frothing. Anyway, I'll quickly wrap up the Blood Axes because I think that this tech is pretty fun. They've got a stratagem which is called Dead Sneaky. It's only a CP, which is good because a lot of our stratagems are still 2 CP, and this codex straddles this weird. It wants you to multi-detach, like it kind of is tickling you to do it, but it also doesn't. So if you're within 3 of a board edge at the end of your movement phase, you can chuck that unit into strat reserve. So if you've been sneaky with your commandos, forward deployed them, we'll talk about that later. They've done their retrieve Octavius data or whatever. You can advance them to the board edge, piss them off for 1 CP, and then redeploy later on to cause more havoc, which is pretty rad. And then finally, to balance out that CP, their relic is at the start of your command phase. On a 4-up, you get a command point, which is pretty tidy.
So they're really like mucking around with reserves, Blood Axes. Like they're really messing around with what they can do. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And when you look at like some of the changes to the buggies, once again, I'll mention them as my favorites. You know, running them in units of 3 now. They don't split after deployment.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. You start to kind of get this picture where this unit can, this army detachment, Christ, I should say, this culture is really, you can get some really interesting tech, like being able to run in. Previously, I found the buggies were actually quite limp in combat. Like, you could throw them in and they can't really cop a beating. So fallback and charge didn't have a lot of value. Ramshackle, I think, is actually more. It's actually going to affect melee more than shooting, I think. There's much more like, you know, strength 6, like, you know, bloody power claws. There's so many power claws, lightning claws. There's so many melee weapons out there that's really going to affect, like white scars and things like that, that it will just completely blunt. So being able to fall back and charge, I think, is pretty gangster.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. And we'll probably touch on some units later, but I know you two have been talking about some really cool buggy choices that people have never probably seen before. But yeah, hit us with the next clan, Nathan.
I might keep it pretty high level for the other 2 clans I want to quickly talk about. Yep. But going quickly back to what I said before about primary clans, where you want your warlord to be in there to be able to get access to the Strat and Relic. 2 that really pop out to me really quickly are Evil Sons and Freebooters, because their relic and their strat is pretty exemplary, and their clan trait isn't too bad either. So Evil Sons are similar to last time, +1 to the move, +2 to the move if they're a spree freak. and no advance and shoot penalty on assault weapons.
Okay.
The drive-by Dakar, basically you get fire and fade for a speed freak unit, which is all your bikes, all your death copters, all your buggies. So if you have something, let's say, probably this makes running the 3-man buggy units a bit more viable, because you can take a big 3-man unit of, let's say, a Boondaka Snazwagon, which is not really viable in any other clan or way, but it has pretty hectic shooting. So you can drive out a unit of 3.
I've never heard of that either, but it's still going to be so good, man.
I don't think they have. But, you know, you can dump your 42 strength 7 -2 2 damage shots and then drive away and just keep doing that every turn rather than getting tied up. But the real reason I really like this clan is the relic, something Orcs didn't have last time. So Evil Sun's model only, so that can be a war boss, that can be... they've also specified with these relics certain ones that can be taken by vehicles. So this one can, so you can give it to a Death Killer War Trike, a Kill Rig. Add 2 to the move characteristic, and at the start of the fight phase, if the warlord is within engagement range of any enemy units, those units cannot be selected to fight until all eligible enemy units from your army have done so. So pick your character of choice, drive it up to a big pile of enemy units, touch all of them in combat, and they can't fight, and Orcs now have fight last.
Oh, wow.
So, especially given, like, potentially you may not be running a ton of boy units anymore, you may want to play a bit more MSU with a bunch of small hard-hitting units or characters. Having a fight last is pretty massive to be able to dogpile stuff. And then also, obviously, Ninth is about scoring on the primary, and my favourite one for that is actually Freebooters. So they have a pretty cool clan tactic with +1 to hit if you've killed something else anywhere on the board that phase for the rest of your army. So, which is amazing, especially with these buggies that we'll get to, where you can kill a small unit and then, let's say, your flash kits or your tank busters or whatever now have, you know, they can hit on 4s, they can hit on 3s, which is a bit weird for an Orc. But the strat here, and the reason why you want to take it on a warlord, is make any infantry freebooters unit objective secured at the start of the command phase. So, and that lasts till the start of your next command phase. So you do that, you've moved your stuff on enemy objectives, or someone's thrown a bloodletter bomb into your lines, and you can just flick on OBSEC on your units to be able to take that objective back. And it's basically 5 primary points for 1 CP. And it pairs really well with the relic, which is throw this on a freebooters model, which can also be a vehicle. While enemy units are within 6 inches of the bearer, they lose the objective secure ability. So basically doubling down on OBSEC and anti-OBSEC with freebooters to be able to really influence the primary, which is going to be big into, let's say, AdMech or a Poxwalker Horde or something, where they're relying on their OBSEC in the midboard to score on the mission, and you can just take that away.
Wow, that's really strong. That ability to give a unit OBSEC, it's not locked to core or infantry or anything. It's just unit, hey?
It's locked to. It is locked to infantry, but okay. There is some core that there is some infantry that isn't core, such as characters. So you can throw it on a really durable war boss, drive him up to the midfield, sit him in front of 20 Poxwalkers, and he can just take it off them entirely himself.
And even just Storm Boys, like you can just lob them forward, right?
Yeah, great. Man, 100%.
Just can I there's 2 things just really quickly on the Evil Sons. Nate touched on the fight last. Just keep in mind as well, I'm going to talk about the pig rig a lot this episode, but the big pig rig, the kill rig, she is on a Titan base, and that is, for those watching at home, fucking massive. So that is an immense. If you drift that into a couple of units, if you can tag a few things, you've got a lot of fight last there. Like, you are really cleaning up. It's not just a small little 40 mil fight last 3-inch aura. You pretty much got a 6-inch aura from a normal character. I just wanted to shout that. But on the freebooters strat, at the start of the command phase, Nathan and I were talking about one of our favorite stratagems, Kareen, which we'll go into later on, but essentially able to, after like something is destroyed, you can, like a vehicle is destroyed, you can, if it explodes, you can throw it forward 6 inches in any direction, and then the models can then get out. And if you pair that with emergency disembark, in their phase, even if they wrap and trap your vehicle and you emergency, you jump over their head and you land on their objective. In your command phase, you can switch that off. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many little.
Holy
It's not
shit,
that-
that's cool.
Yeah. You can get like 6 to 12 inches of movement. Yeah, it's just really cool.
Bloody hell.
Did you have any other claims you wanted to quickly touch on, Nick?
No, not in a big way. Hey, like snake bites has had a lot of coverage because it's like kind of pairs well with the beast snaggers, and everyone's kind of raining on death skulls. But I do think one thing with death skulls, they kept obsec for all infantry. So having like a, Nathan's talked about having one of your detachments as your primary kind of warlord stratagem detachment, and then having like a tech detachment, almost like a brutal detachment and a cunning detachment. If the death skulls is your cunning detachment, still being able to lob forward Storm Boys with obsec is so powerful still.
You don't need the relic or the strat from Death Skull, so yeah, perfect to put all your specialist Storm Boys, Commandos, Mega Nobs, Tank Busters in that detachment to make them obsec, and a 5+ feel no pain for them now, which is against mortals, which is used to be 6-up invuln, but I think still a bit of resistance to mortals is pretty valuable, especially these days.
Coming into the Grey Knight, Thousand Sun meta, for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. And all right, well, are you guys ready to dive into some units?
Mm.
All right, we got the first one. It's not called Boys on the Run Sheet, lads. What's it called?
Menza.
And now, why is that?
Boy.
Is it because they're T5?
Boys to mans. Nate, you were frothing the megas. Do you want to take away the megas and the beast boss on Squiggy?
Sure. So I'll again be brutal here against my better nature, but I do love some of the stuff here. So the MANS is obviously the abbreviation for the Mega Nobs. And back in the days of 8th, I was Liam's Grot Oiler and decided to build another 20 Mega Nobs with the Ork Brute conversion that he did for his ETC list. And to be honest, Megas are as good as ever. They've actually got a 3-point discount for the PK custom shooter loadout. Or an extra point of toughness, which you can try and do the math in the head, but it doesn't work. And I think there's a lot of ways you can play them. I think Freebooters or Death Skulls as little 5-mans that have access to OBSEC is pretty amazing. I think if you want to run them as a hammer unit with Gaz and the Goths, they'd be pretty amazing at that with the exploding 6s and 5s. They're the quintessential sort of Orc elite unit, so a big fan of them, and to be honest, backing them up. We were saying a little bit before about how characters have gotten a massive improvement in this book, and sort of the shining flag of that, as Goonhammer alerted all of us a couple of days ago, is the beast boss on Squigosaur. The model hasn't dropped yet, but the big mech himself, Nick, is already well to work on a conversion that I am, once again, being a Grot Oiler and following off. This boy is frankly ridiculously resistant for his points cost of 145 points. His T7, 9 wounds, inherently 5+ invo and neg1 damage. He has 5 strength 6, neg 2 damage attacks, and then 3 squig attacks, which you can only ever have 3, but the strength 7, neg 3 damage, and a 6 to wound is automatically 3 mortal wounds. This guy is frankly ridiculously durable and punchy for his points, and once you start looking at what you can do with some of the relics and the warlord traits in this book, and even the strats for the beast boss and characters, he frankly punches well above his weight. And as someone who really loved running a Scorpec Lord on Necrons, this is everything the Scorpec Lord wishes he was. He's already incredibly durable, and he hits a lot harder. And if you're running a beast snagger attachment, he will buff your army, but to be honest, you don't need them. He's doing his thing. He's smashing around. He's existing longer than he should, and I think that's what you want from the book. And to be honest, you can do similar things with the standard war boss with the relics and the war traits. When we get into the specialist mobs, there's a combo that does require a bit of an FAQ, but is pretty potential, rules as intended. And then I'm pretty keen on the sort of things you can do with characters in these books, and it makes you think a lot of Tyranids and Gene Stealer Cult, where the rest of your army can kind of function around it, and you've got these characters punching out of the Horde or the buggy.
Like an old one-eye
the
just
buggy
running out.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of that. But is there many units you want to talk about? I think you've mentioned them a couple of times, Nick. If you want to talk quickly about the commandos and then the pig rig in detail.
Yeah, I got to talk about the big piggy. I think the commandos they've been well buffed. Thank you to big shout out to Kill Team for sponsoring the commando buff here. Loving that from them. But they've got what I love about the commandos is dirt cheap. T5 sneaking up the board early. So they used to have a deep strike, which is good, but now they've got a forward deploy. They're only 1 point. So tidy, dude. So tidy. They've got a 6-inch move, so they're 1 inch extra than the boys, just so they can brag about it.
Oh wow! I didn't even see that.
Yeah, really sneaky. Two attacks as standard, +1 with the chopper. Truthfully, I don't think I'd ever be chucking all these special weapons that you've now got access in. Like, you can chuck a burner and stuff in, which is pretty sexy, but I'd rather put extra units in. But they've got some really interesting things here. So I'm going to read some of their special rules. So obviously the forward deploy, that's just your standard forward deploy. Don't have to go through that. Their special ability is Sneaky Git. Each time an attack is allocated to a model in this unit while it's receiving the benefits of cover, any attack, please note, add an additional 2 to any armor saving throw made against that attack. Pretty interesting. That makes them a 3 up in cover, I should say. So
3 up in light cover, and then a cheeky neg one to hit in dense with the +2 to save. So
wow,
pretty amazing.
Yeah, pretty solid. And then they also have +1 to wound. If a model's within 1 inch of a terrain feature, they get +1 to wound. So pretty gangster. One of the other things that's really good about them very quickly is they have the tank buster bomb keyword. So there's that little, pretty sexy. They can lob a tank buster bomb. There's a stratagem for 1 CP to deal.
Yeah, this was
pretty hectic.
Yeah. It's similar to the melter bomb strat in the Space Marine book, where you basically sacrifice a model's attacks in combat to get 1 hit, and if they get the 1 hit, they do 2d3 mortals to a vehicle in combat, which I think the 3 units that have this keyword are the commandos, as well as the boys and the tank busters, obviously.
Yeah.
So just those, especially even a 10-man boy unit, charges a raider, probably not expecting much to happen, and then you pull that out, it really sort of flips the math on people.
Yeah, it's pretty gangster. And they've got some nice little upgrades. You can chuck a bomb squig in, which is, once again, it's hitting on a 3+, dealing D3 mortals. So you've got the potential to really just drop a light vehicle out of nowhere, pop a transport, and then just crump everything that comes out. They're absolutely incredible, man. I'm writing up a list at the moment with 45 of them, just 15, 3 units of 15, and just forward deploying, and that's piss all points.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
How many
and you can
points
still
is
take.
I think it's 500. It's not that much.
Nah, it's not too bad at all. So you can just have this mass, and if that's in death skulls, they're on objectives, then you're suddenly forcing your opponent to go, do I look at these little pigwigs squealing down the wing, or do I clear the primary? You're forcing their hand quite smartly. So I love these a lot.
Wow. Just for all that, the extra saves, just chilling in cover, forward deploying, 15-man units forward deploying.
Mm-hmm.
That is some aggressive pointing. Was it 11 points a dude, you said?
That's 1 more than a boy. So it's, 10?
10 points a dude.
And
wow.
Yeah, so for a pretty significant bit of upgrading on the top.
Yeah, tell AdMech to leave their Vanguard at home, mate. You got 45 boys up front that you don't care about, and then the real army hits. Wow.
And also, Nick, what if the AdMech isn't near a terrain feature? Is there anything the commandos can do to still get that +1 to hit?
Yeah, of course.
You
can, mate. If you've got 10 points spare in your army, you can chuck in what's called a distraction grot, which is just a little piece of shit grot that carries around a bit of rubble and just gives the commandos. What is that? it essentially treats, once per battle, you can treat that unit as if it's within 1 inch of a terrain feature. So for 10 points, you can just give it +1 to wound anywhere on the board.
Oh, holy
Legit.
shit. So that little dude with the rubble, is he meant to be like
Yeah.
hiding the lads?
Yeah. Little
He just
gangster.
throws a pebble in front of the admech and it's just like, yeah, that's a building. And then the boys go, all right, let's hit him harder.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah. What is it? If you believe it, it's a thing. Listen, we weren't really going to speak about it, but Warbikers are sexual. You will see this on Pornhub in the next couple of weeks. I promise you. 25 points, base 14-inch move, T5, 3 wounds, -1 to hit, auto advance 6, and it's core, and it's speed freaks. So if you're an Evil Sons, that's a 16-inch move, and then you've got extra on top of the advance. Hello.
Jesus.
That is insane.
And they got a -1 hit just because of the dust that they kick up? Wow.
Yeah, class.
So if you get those boys in the speed war, and you can run whatever clans you want to buff the shooting further, but just straight up in half range, it's 108 shots, strength 5, neg 1 damage, and there's a bunch of strats that you can do in certain clans to buff that further. So even Evil Sons, you dump 108 heavy bolter damage 1 shots in, and then you drive away.
No more to pay.
Dude, yeah, because they can fire and fade. Oh. And that's from 9 dudes.
Yep.
So, what's that, 12 shots each? Holy shit. That's a lot of firepower. And how are they costed?
25 points.
25.
It's like a better Tomb Blade, Nathan.
Mate, my Necron book is just it's already, I think it's got 1 cobweb on it this week, and it's got a few more to gather before it'll be picked up again. This is just a much better version in every way of that book, as it was in the last edition as well when Orks came out following Necrons.
Yeah, wow, that's strong. Any other units you guys want to cover on before we move down the tree?
I might talk about a unit that I'm building as we speak. And you might hear the word squig a little bit in this book, but the Rucker Truck Squig Buggy. Boys, Orcs are an artillery army now, if you haven't heard.
They stole some AdMech trucks, yeah.
They stole some AdMech trucks, they made it half the price, and they decided to loot them up. So it's a buggy, it's 9 wounds. It's the one that basically sat there with full stock on the shelves while the other 3 and 4 were sold out throughout the last edition, but now it's picked up a gun on the top, which is the heavy squig launcher, which is strength 5, neg 2, 2 damage, 2d6 blast. This unit can shoot if it doesn't see the target, so out of line of sight, 36-inch range. Also has a small squig launcher, 18 inches, d6 blast for the same profile. Has a few other weapons on it as well. Has a pretty decent combat profile, but 3d6 blast shots out of line of sight, 90 points. Pretty good when you compare it to most other out of line of sight shooting in the game, especially given, as Nick was saying at the start, how dense the tables on ninth are getting, having out of line of sight. And to be honest, in a scenario like teams where Orcs will be wanting to get a heavy table, this kind of just doubles down on that. Against 3, 4, 5 of these things, like small units holding backfield objectives or infiltrators or Nurglings just can't exist against this, and you're able to sort of make things really awkward for your opponent.
So with freebooters, will these guys hit on 3s after the first wound?
Not in ninth with the +1 hit cap, but only their big one hits on 4s. It then would take the small 1 to 4s if you did that. But there's a few other things you can do, like you can add. I think you can have access to exploding 6s with bad moons. You can advance it. These are assault weapons, by the way. You can advance and shoot. No penalty in Evil Sons. Whatever you want to do. But this is a pretty.
Sorry, you want to touch on the squig mine while you're there?
Yes, the squig mine. So these things get 1 squig mine. If you end your movement phase within 6 of a vehicle, you can roll a dice. On a 3 or 5, it does D3 mortal wounds, and on a 6, it does D6 mortal wounds. And they get 1 each of these things. So if you want to drive your unit of 3 up in Evil Sun's, drop 3 mines, and then drive away, be my guest. It's a pretty cheeky thing to do a couple of mortals. And there is a lot of things in this book that do cheeky mortals here, there, and everywhere.
I was saying before to Nathan, before we started the podcast, that Nightbringers everywhere are just absolutely shitting their dacks. Like the amount of just out of, mortals in the movement phase, mortals in the charge phase, mortals. You could kill a Nightbringer without even hitting the thing with just mortals alone from this book. Like, just drive a pig rig up, park her next to it, 3 mortals from a psychic, 2 D3 from a 3D6 charge. Yeah. It's feral.
Jesus. Man.
Yeah, there's a lot in this book, and obviously there'll be things that we haven't chatted about in this one, but it's a big book. There's a lot of units. They've got a lot of love, and people have got the flexibility to sort of take whatever they want and make it work.
Yeah, dude. Well, look, that's as smooth a transition as anything, Nick. Take us away with the pig rig.
Well, you've heard me grunt and squeal enough. Let me have a little quick read. I won't go too deep into it because actually Goonie did a pretty good job of running this down, and it has been quite heavily talked about online. But this big puppy, it's 190 points. There's 2 variations: the hunter rig, 160 points, and then the kill rig, or as more affectionately I like to call her, the pig rig. She is 190 points. It is a T8, 12-inch moving, 16 wound monstrosity on a knight base that is a psyker. It has transport for 10 beast snagger units, and it has probably my favourite feature of the pig rig is its main gun. It's a 24-inch assault 1, auto hitting if you've cast 1 psychic power, so pretty straightforward. Strength 9 -3 D6 weapon. How's your dinner?
Psychic power makes it auto hit?
Yeah, so if each time this weapon is selected to shoot with, if the bearer successfully manifested any psychic powers this turn, change this weapon type to Assault D3. Sorry, I didn't even see that. Okay, cool. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, that attack automatically hits. Sorry, it's Assault D3 as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention.
Wow.
So you could, yeah. So she just G's up the Werboy, the new version of the Weird Boy, plugs his nipples into the energy of the War and just goes absolutely batshit crazy and just shoots off lancers left, right, and center. So it's a big one. It's got a pretty interesting out of line of sight gun. It's a heavy D6, strength 6, -1, 2 damage blast weapon. And I'm going to touch on a stratagem here because orcs don't hit very often, but all you've got to do is hit. It's called Ground Shaker Shells. I think it's only 1 CP, and essentially it's what was that unit in 8th that was real popular? The Imperial Fist were running it, Thunderfire Cannon.
That's it.
Yeah, it was essentially it essentially turns the weapon into a Thunderfire Cannon. It halves movement and minuses 2 from advance and charge on a unit that it hits. So 48-inch, blast. So you've got a pretty good chance if you're facing like a Lucius blob or one of those big sister blobs or anything else. You're rolling 6 shots. You're hopefully getting 2 hits on that unit, and yeah, you can halve their movement. So instantly,
when you pair that with the psychic power that it does as well, one of its psychic powers being also a target unit within 18 that it can see another -2 advance and charge, you can potentially make a big threat unit -4 to its advance and charge with half movement, just completely take a unit out of the game.
So we're looking at 195 points, so under 200 points.
190, yeah.
Yeah, so we're in the ballpark of like a Hive Tyrant or a Demon Prince kind of ballpark. Yeah. This thing is the defensive profile of a Land Raider without the save. So it's T8, 16 wounds.
3 up, 6 up. So still has a small invoker things.
Yeah, like not a bad thing. Like if a Land Raider is on a 6 up, this thing's also on a 6 up, so it's not too bad. And then you're a Psyker. You've got psychic powers. You've got reasonable shooting. And what's the combat like?
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to talk about it. I got a bit excited. Sorry. It doesn't have much. It's only got base 6 attack that are hitting on strength 7. -1, 2 damage. Sorry, -2, flat 3.
Oh my god.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's all right,
Let
man.
me reread that. Sorry, I got that wrong. You've got 6 attacks that are strength 8, -2, 2 damage. Then you make an additional 4 attacks that are strength 7, -2, 3 damage. And then there's 5 lads that are just, or 4 lads that are just kicking it on the rig itself. They get to have a go. They're strength 5, -1, 1 damage.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, so she's got 14 attacks, essentially. No,
Fuck.
yeah, pretty impressive.
So it's like in Lord Discordant at this stage, mate. Like it's wow. And it's a transport as well, so you can put 10 lads in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a character, so you can give it a relic and wall a trophy.
Yeah.
Fuck.
This is the whole reason why they restricted certain relics to vehicles, because some of the
Can this chap have
Big
fight
old.
last like we talked about before?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Sure can. That's what I was saying. That big night base, drift that into a few units. Beautiful.
Yeah. Is it it doesn't have beast or anything, right? Like it can't fly through ruins that are breachable?
Nah, it'd be a vehicle.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It's a
Because
vehicle.
if this thing was a beast, holy fuck. Dude, I like it. I'm keen to see people use it. And with that, what's that Korean strap where you can, like, when you die, you move 6 inches and lads get out? That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Fuck. Well, all right. Well,
you
sorry, you guys go.
I was going to say, do you want to just quickly dovetail into the psychic powers before we touch on any of the other relics that are worth noting?
Yeah,
because we've kind of started
hit it,
mentioning a
boys.
few.
Yeah.
I'll kick it off with one of the ones that I'm really frothing at the moment. It's out of line of sight 2, which is exceptional. It's just select an enemy unit within 18 and roll 1d6 for each model in the unit. For a roll of 6, that enemy unit suffers a mortal wound. So this is a pretty traditional spell. We see it in Death Guard. We see it in a few things, right? But where this becomes a little bit sexier is that on a roll of a 9 or more, you add 1 to the rolls when resolving the psychic power. So it's on a 5 up, they suffer a mortal wound. And there's a relic for +1 to cast. And so on a roll of an 8, you can get, if you're facing a Lucius blob, again, very prevalent in the meta, hard to shift, just roll to crunch. You don't even have to be able to see them and just wipe a third of that unit out. Insane value. Cast on a 6.
That's spicy.
Yeah. Very spicy.
And, like, it's not even, like, just AdMech. Like, you've got sisters rolling around in big units now.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, potential big, like, in our area, we've got some players playing a Bellacore list, like, good old Liam Hackett on the last episode. All these horrors, you just want to dump mortal wounds on that. Wow, imagine if that horror unit pumps out to, like, 45 models, mate.
I actually experienced this in person on Sunday. I played Liam's Bellacore list.
Yeah.
I did go down, but DeCrunch killed about more than my entire rest of my army, I think, besides 1 model. I rolled against 59 horrors when that unit was fully split and did 23 mortal wounds in a psychic phase from 1 spell. So, and then you're obviously getting, 3, 4, 5 turns of mileage out of that. So it was definitely doing the hard work for me in that game.
That's sick. Yeah. What other spells are you guys liking at the moment?
If you don't want to be a coward and hide behind a wall and you want to actually get up there and punch face, I really like the new version of Fists of Gork. And again, like to crunch it has a lower and higher cast.
Okay.
So on a 6, it's the old sort of add 2 to the strength and attacks. But on an 11, which becomes a 10 with that relic, add 3 to the strength and attacks. So on a character model within 12 that you can see, so that's Gaz, that's a beast boss on Squigosaur, that's a war boss with a pretty spicy warlord trait that I'll bring up in a second. You can turn these things into one-man heat-seeking missiles, throw them down your opponent's throat, and get work done.
Jesus. Is it do weird boys still get the bonuses from dudes around them or no?
Nick, do you want to cover this?
Yeah, I do, and no, they don't. So they changed it. So essentially, if they've got 20 or more Ork unit, models, whatever, around them, it just means they can get a free 2 cast. So they can cast an additional power each turn, as long as they're surrounded by 20 boys. They don't like it's a to and a fro. Obviously, it makes it harder to get easy to jumps and things like that, which is just a fact you've got to accept. but it also does mean that their heads are not imploding as regularly, which I'm a huge fan of because, oh man, my blood pressure in half the games I play is just for that psychic phase. You are just, your bum hole is as tight as anything, and you are just, your head is exploding, waiting for the little bastard to blow up.
Yeah. Given the old book, you were getting those 2+ to cast, 3+ to cast just by having that unit of boys around you, and the old 12+ to cast in the Ork book rather than just the 6/6 or 1/1 was the perils. It was so risky to have Psychers. So I'm actually a big fan of the change because you're basically getting the old Warpad head strap for just having dudes around you, and it makes the relic attractive, and you're more likely to just have your weird boy for the whole game, especially because the second part of that relic is the 4+ to perils mortals. So you're not going to lose the weird boys. It's going to be very tougher in the blow zone head up.
Yeah, that's very true, and especially with certain things in meta at the moment causing perils in situations. This is nice. I played Sam Rubino.
You'd rather have your. Sorry, you go, Matt.
No, it wasn't Sam. Sorry, I played Brian over the weekend, and yeah, the Drakari relic, where if you deny a psychic power, you cop perils. So like with stuff like that, and the double perils from demons and stuff, I think this 4+ save is nice for a squishy psyker.
Well, I'll quickly touch on two other. Obviously, we have two disciplines now. So there's the power of the Wa, which is like the traditional weird boy psychic tree, and then there's a beast head discipline for like the beast snag or were boy. So I'll touch on two of those really quickly so we can shimmy into some of the other fun, sexy stuff. One's called Frazzle. Now, once again, I will talk about the pig rig very quickly here. Frazzle is another Warp Charge 6. Chef's kiss, nice and easy. Roll 1d6 for each enemy unit that's within 9 inches of this psyker. So if you remember earlier, we're talking about the pig rig sitting on a knight base, 9 inches from a knight base. That's fucking a long way just for those watching at home. And on a 4+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So you're still, the 4+ is tough, but even still, to be able to affect everything within 9 inches of a potential knight base to do D3 mortal wounds, just incredible AoE splash damage.
Dude, this guy's now a Catan.
Yeah, Cosmic Fire. Again, just taking everything good from my old book and just taking it here and just improving on it. Just stealing the Necron's homework.
Who would have thought that all they had to do was just add some bacon and it became a better book?
I think Nick and I are the first ones going to be at our local G-Dub campaigning for more pigs and squigs in books in every faction to just make 40k a better place.
That's got to be our next team name, right? Pigs and Squigs. Oh,
that's erotic. The next one I'll quickly touch on is Squiggly Curse. This one's excellent. It's a Warp Charge 7, and if manifested, select one enemy unit within 12 of the psyker and roll a d6 for each model in the unit. And on a result of a 4+, that unit suffers a mortal wound. If any models in that unit are destroyed by this psychic power, every other unit within 6 inches of that unit suffers a mortal wound. So it's not as good, I don't think, as Frazzle, but I just wanted to highlight it for, once again, just easy access to mortal wounds.
Wow.
Big fan of it.
So you're doing this... Oh, sorry, Nathan, you go.
No, you're right. Go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're doing mortal wounds, in the psychic. You've got commandos and you've got, other stuff that can do mortal wounds, on demand. And then you've got the big leader lad that's doing like 3+ mortal wounds in combat. And we're looking at like easy 10 mortal wounds a turn, right? Like in a certain build.
Easily.
Like that's pretty hectic. That's like on the level of what Sisters are doing right now. Yeah, sick.
It's really powerful. What are you going to say, Nate?
Just doubling down again if you don't want to be a coward and just do mortal wounds from far away. There is another one in this one that pairs really well with Fist of Gork, Spirit of Gork. The Warboy can cast on a Warp Charge of 6, and it adds one additional attack to Squig attacks, and then also lets them do an additional mortal wound on a 6. So if you get a big beast boss on Squig, it's all loaded up with your favourite relic and warg trait, throw fists on him, you're getting 2 or 3 additional to his strength and attack. You're making his Squig do 4 mortal wounds instead of 3 mortal wounds, and you're also getting another chance at that with a 4 Squig attack. So you can really sort of buff up that heat-seeking missile even more with the Spirit of Ork power.
Wow. Have they limited the amount of bosses you could take in a detachment?
Mm.
They have one detachment, but yeah, you're not that persuaded from running 2 or 3 for that very reason.
I was going to say, if you take Goths with Gaz and then take this chap, oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're really wanting to, like, the characters are strong in this. Like the desire to take a triple pat just to be able to fill out 3 beast bosses on Squigosaur, if I'm honest, is pretty it's pretty attractive right now.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. Because like from just the stuff we've talked so far before we've even gone into relics and stuff, we've got the power in big units in a big horde, you know, with the Goths and with the commanders. You've got the power in the buggies, you've got the power in small units as well, and all these little mortal wounds that are coming out, and the characters now. It looks like exactly like you guys said at the start of the episode. If you want to build an Ork army a certain way, there's a clan for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's sick, dude. All right, shall we dive into the relics?
Yeah, Nate, do you want to lead? Yeah, Nate, do you want to lead off on some of the relics? Like, I'll be honest, once again, I think places like Goonhammer have done a good job. Yeah. Like, if you just want to go look at some overview, so I don't think we'll go through and read them all individually, but there's easily 1 or 2 that we probably need to connect with the Beast Boss.
Yes.
Because that's when he really starts to have a bit of appeal.
For sure. Like, going back to some of those clan ones, if you want to, like, the Beast Boss given his inherent durability, like, I love the Pig Rig, but it can be mowed down with, you know, half a dozen Dark Lancers or so. But, you know, not Nick's Pig Rig, but any mortal's Pig Rig.
Have a little faith.
So, have a little faith. But he's a great target for the Evil Sun's Relic, which is the Fight Last, or the Anti-Obsec from Freebooters. But if you don't want to be just having a hard-to-kill one and you actually want to do some damage yourself, there's some really cool relics in here. Headwhopper's Kill Chopper, moved over from the last codex, but it's a strength +2, -3, 2 damage weapon where you do an additional mortal on top, and you can replace the beast bosses or a normal big chopper or the huge chopper, which is on pretty much every melee character, just to do those extra mortals. Or you can throw on the Beast Hide Mantle, which buffs his durability even more with a 5-up Feel No Pain and an extra attack.
Yeah, and I think like when you look at a little concept that Nathan and I have been kind of marinating on over the last like couple of days as we froth up a storm on this codex is almost having, if you are running a dual detachment, whatever it may be, almost looking at these beast bosses as like literally as a brutal and one as a cunning, like having one that's like this hammer unit that will just go in and like some of the combos, you can literally take a Titan in 1 turn. A buffed up beast boss can take down a Titan in 1 turn pretty easily because, you know, 2 CP gets +2 damage against it, like against the Titan. Like it's just crazy what they can do. And then you can just toolkit one up to be this absolute anvil and just hard to shift unit with like -1 damage, Warlord trait, you know, 5-up Feel No Pain, T7, like look out, sir, so you can't just shoot it. It's just insane.
Yeah, wow. Even just being at 9 wounds is so handy. You just have a lookout, sir, all the time until you're ready to engage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sick. Any other relics that you guys are seeing?
The Killer Claw made it over, which is a great, still a great thing to throw on a Warboss. You lose the rerolls to wound, but to be honest, with one of these Warlord traits, you really don't need the reroll to wound. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just see if there's any other relics we can. I think that kind of covers it for me. Yeah. Nick, do you have any others?
No, mate. Like we've talked about, like the Freebooter one, the Bad Skull Banner taking away the Obsec. I'm a huge promoter of that. I reckon that's really cool.
Yeah. Probably just the Super Cyborg body, actually. The new Mega Armor Warboss is coming out with the big chopper, and you can give him a 4+ invulnerable save and half damage coming in on an infantry model. So it makes just like, you know, the standard Warboss or the Mega Warboss really durable. Basically, just becomes a button.
Can that be put on the already -1 damage lad?
No, they've been very careful with a lot of these relics and warlord traits to specify whether it can be given to an infantry model or a vehicle, which is frankly good because you don't need to double down anymore with the beast boss.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. In terms of, I guess the next thing we'll move on to is secondaries. Did Orcs get any secondary objectives that are worth taking? Hit us with them, mate.
You want to kick us off, Nate?
Yeah, sure. I know there's one you're really in love with, Nick, in certain builds. But I'll go with one that I obviously, especially playing Necrons a lot, I found, you've always got your Battlefield Supremacy secondary, and you've also always got your Shadow Operations that you build into the list, but it's always that third secondary. It's a bit of a struggle if you're not playing something like Sweep or Priority Targets or something where it's an easy third secondary. So having a good No Mercy, No Respite or Purge the Enemy secondary is always good. And there are two really good ones in here, but the better one is probably Stomp of Good, which is basically just grind but for in combat. So score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round if the number of enemy units destroyed by melee attacks made by Orc units from your army is more than the number of friendly non-Gretchen units that were destroyed by enemy melee attacks, and you get an additional one if you've killed at least 2, and it's double what your enemy killed. So it's basically grind, but you can score 4. So against certain gun line armies and everything, if you're running Orcs to not do stuff in combat, go look at another codex. So this already really sort of plays in well, and it should be reliable,
Wow.
9 or 10 against the right matchup, if not more.
Yeah, this is actually so different to grind in some games, right? Because if you look at an AdMech army, they're not going to be able to kill anywhere near the amount of non-Gretchen units that you're going to kill on them. Even if they're tough as nails, because you're just going to cut through them and they're not going to be able to do anything, even a Sister's army that has solid reroll ability in combat, you're going to start chopping through it. So this is sick. Yeah, wow.
And I think if you look at this and I think it was funny, Nathan. At the start, you said that I'm the brutal one. I reckon I'm the lazy one. I'm the cunning one. I'm always looking to sit back and shoot.
I reckon it's probably flipped through this. I'm just my inner, I'm obviously very calm in my day-to-day life, and maybe it's just the playing Orcs that brings out the other side.
Yeah, it just hulks out. But if you look at this secondary, being able to score 4 is a lot in a turn.
Yeah.
That's where Drakari with Herd, that's just such a bollock secondary. So if you've got a Goths army and you are loaded up with boys that are ready to crump, but then you've invested in 85-point Rucker Truck Squig Buggies times, say, 6, right? So, I'm not good at math, but 85 times 6, whatever that is, someone. And
510, yeah.
Yeah, sounds great. So that, and they're just lobbing, right? All they need to do is just kill off a Sister Zephyrim unit or 2 every turn, and then you can just charge in. So first 2 turns you can just spend just out of line of sight, crump them down, or just dacker them down, right? And then once their melee threats are gone, what are they going to do? They literally can't stop you getting this. It's actually so strong. So yeah, that's a really cool one.
Yeah, and you're right. Just 2 turns of 4, and you've more than half the secondaries. A lot of people are quite happy and adequate with 7 or 8 in some secondaries in some games, and you just need 2 turns and you're there. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really tidy.
Yeah, dude. Nick, hit us with the Green Tide.
Yeah, mate. Big fan of the Green Tide. So when I first read all of these, I was a bit like, oh, man, we got cucked. But then when I looked at this last one again, I was like, hang on a second. I'm going to read this out. So at the start of the battle, divide the battlefield into quarters. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round if 2 or more battlefield quarters each have an Orcs unit from your army that contains 11 or more models wholly within them. Score 5 victory points at the end of the battle round if all 4 table quarters have an Orc unit with 11 or more. So essentially, if you have 2 11-strong unit of Grots in your half of the board, no matter where that is, it can be along the very back edge. It could be in a light ruin, which pretty much obscures the little pests. You are getting 3 points every battle round for doing nothing. And that's 100. That's 110 points for those watching at home. So 110 points could literally secure you 15 points in a game for doing nothing. They don't need to be anywhere. And the rest of your army, so all 1,890 points of it, can just go forward and just push and smash. I think this is an absolutely incredible secondary. Nathan's trying to convince me that I need to take at least 12 for an obligatory wound. I refuse to go above 11. I like to live on the edge. I will be taking 11 unit grots.
Yeah, but it's like if you're against an opponent that doesn't have any outer line to start shooting and you can bubble out so they'll never touch those Gretch, you're like, cool, 15 secondary and I'm just going to push forward.
Yep. How'd you do that? Oh, yeah, by the way, 45 commandos sitting in. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it gets out of control if you go second, because it's end of the battle round. So if you go first, the grot strategy is good and probably will get you points. But if you go second, it's reverse herd. Your opponent has no control over it. So, early game, you can easily force, like, even redundancy if you think your opponent's going to run all over you. You can just throw those sort of throwaway 10, 15 man boy units, Gretchen units, storm boy units, whatever you want, into your opponent's quarter, get those 5 points early and get the secondary up to 13 by turn 3. And just, you're laughing.
Pretty powerful.
Jeez, that's going to be great. And they said Oath was strong. This is going to be so cool. It's good to see now that a lot of the books are getting these secondaries that can actually compete and fill that little gap of the third secondary. That's sexy. All right. I know we already covered on a number of the strats, but there's a few that you guys might want to talk about. Anything in particular?
Nate, do you want to kick off with these?
Yeah, sure. One of the strats I'm a really big fan of that might look like a nerf at the initial pass is Get Stuck In. Now that's on a boy unit. It used to be the old Fight Again. There is no Fight Again now in this book. But this is really cool on a boys or beast snagger unit. You get a 6-inch pylon and a 6-inch consolidate instead of the Fighting Again. And if it's 10 or less models, it's 1 CP. If it's 11 or more, it's 2. But to be honest, like a 10-man boy unit, T5 now is pretty strong. And given their obsec, being able to muck around with the primary, potentially where you need that, extra 3 or 6 inches bit of movement, like 1 CP for that, you'd pay that every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
That's
and then,
yeah.
And then some of the ones from Offer of the Wolf came over pretty well, like the Meganobs, +1 damage, which is massive into the Neg 1 damage meta, or even just getting to 3 damage against certain targets on their power claws, or D3 +1 on their kill saws, which, to be honest, is pretty amazing. And then I think the only other one I wanted to cover was just Snagger Grapple. Now, this is on a Beast Snagger Boys unit. Each time an enemy unit, excluding Titanic, that is within engagement range of that movement is selected to move, roll 1d6 on a 4+. That enemy unit cannot fall back this turn. Now, on initial pass, that's 2 CP, You think 2 CP for a 4-up to make them fall back, that's basically 4 CP. Why'd you pay that? You get a big unit, like a 15, 20-man unit of Beast Snaggers in your army. You come in turn 2, turn 3 against a gun line. You tag 3, 4, 5 units that can't really hit you that well back. You have T5, you have a 6-up invo, you're going to live through the hits. Then they go fall back in the next turn. You pop this. Then they've got to try and make 3, 4, 5, 4-ups to be able to get out of combat against you.
Wow. So it's for every unit they're engaged with.
Correct. So you get a big unit, you charge in, you pop this, and to be honest, you dogpile a few of those mean characters in there as well. And they've got to, thread about a pretty high percentage gauntlet once you've got a few multi-charges in there to be able to get out of there.
Jesus. Imagine just having a little fight last lad in heroic range after you've done that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good one, hey. I was one of the guilty ones who looked at it and went, 2 CP for a 4-up, see ya. And then Nathan's like, but wait, there's more. And I was like, oh yeah, true, it's actually really fucking good.
That's cool.
Yeah, someone like, we've talked about Kareen, which is 1 CP for an Ork vehicle that's non-Titan or wagon, to move 6 inches after it's destroyed and explodes. So that's kind of a little caveat to it. You can't just have a vehicle destroy and then move it to throw stuff out. So that's interesting. That's really good. Ramming speed stayed. It's the exact same. 2 CP, 3d6 charge. And then on a 2-up, once they connect D3 mortal wounds, that stayed, which is good. We probably should talk about gun crazy show-offs, dude. Do you want to, because you're frothing the booters, do you want to just run that?
Yeah, man. I have a really beautiful unit of flash kits that our friend Gab did up for me a couple of years back. And this moves their old data sheet ability to shoot again on a 6 at the closest enemy unit to a 2 CP strat. Now, I had an amazing moment against our friend Brian Lakeland, a time when I was running these boys where I rolled 6 sixes in a shooting phase and killed 20 Death Watch veterans. But to be honest, that's only going to happen rarely enough that I can tell it as a story on a podcast, and it seems amazing. A 2 CP strat for that is a lot better, and given those boys are now T5 and can ride around in a truck, and there's a few, they actually have the clan trait now, the flash kits, so they can benefit from these clan cultures. Anyone you want, having the 2 CP as a shoot again is pretty nice as a reliable source of strength 6 neg 2 damage shots.
Yeah, that's nice, and just like you said, it's less of that random shit, more of like you can play it properly and use it.
Yeah, I love the randomness, but it takes long. Like the shooting phase is so long for orcs. Like with all the friggin' D3, D6, 2D3, it is a long phase. So I'm happy for less randomness.
Yeah, I remember when you shot the custom stomper at me, Nick. I think that game we played. It killed like 5 Armiger Warglaives in one volley. It was crazy. But that shooting of just that one model took like close to 15 minutes, right? Like it took a good 10 minutes to resolve everything and me to take my saves,
Yeah, because I can't remember who I allocate weapons to, so I have to use dice because it's just eight weapons on one thing. But yeah, it's a long phase.
Yeah.
There's a few good ones here. There's a 2 CP. I think this is just the obligatory transhuman in every fucking codex. You know that meme of like the water leaking and just that's hand slapping like some sort of tape on it. That's Games Workshop. Every codex just fucking transhuman. Anyway, yeah, transhuman. 2 CP transhuman on a beast snagger, infantry, cavalry, or monster. Pretty gangster. That's just straight up. Couple of the other ones that aren't too bad.
Is that a reactive transhuman, like you do it when you're targeted?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's cool. So it's not like a proactive one like the sisters have to do. That's cool.
No.
Probably one we haven't mentioned, Nick, that's probably a key linchpin of the old codex that's changed a lot is probably the custom force field and its associated strat. Do you want to quickly go into that?
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting one. This has caused a lot of yarning on just every Facebook page for orcs and bloody Reddit. Like the custom force field was a 5-up invo where for 9 inches and your unit, like it was models wholly within, so not units within. So it was, you could fit 60 boys within this 18-inch bubble, but they were fucking human centipeding to get in there. Like there wasn't a whole lot of flexibility between these mushies, just trying to like cram their little like mushroom stems into each other's butts. So it was tough. But now it's a 6-inch aura of 6-up invo, and it's just units within. So you can have your big mech just cruising down, Leonardo DiCaprioing down the middle of the battlefield, and you've just got shit tagged in. Your whole army gets a 6-up invo very easily now. So that's pretty awesome. Anyway, sorry, the stratagem. The stratagem is 2 CP, and it turns it back into a 5-up, and it goes back to 9 inches. But in true orc fashion, at the end of the turn, the custom force field overloads and then blows the fuck up, so it can't be used at all. So it's kind of like a last ditch, oh shit, I need 5-up invo, bus, chuck it out, and then it's just gone.
Well, it's cool you can trail it out. Like, that's now fucking sick, dude.
Unbelievable.
And it works in combat now as well. Previously just ranged. Now it's a one in combat. So even in just getting a passive 6-up invo to your entire army, the whole game is pretty sick. But yeah, in that key turn where either you've got the whole gun line staring you down or you've got a bunch of units charging in, getting a 5-up to your, however many T5 boys you've decided to cram into the list because, again, you're a masochist and want to move that many models around. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's reactive too. Well, sorry, not reactive, but whereas the old, if you remember the old stratagem for 3 CP for an 18-inch, so 36-inch aura, well, whatever, it was at the start of your turn, right? This is at the start of your opponent's shooting phase. So if you've kind of overextended, they've moved into a key position, and you're like, oh crap, the old pig rig's looking a little tough here. You can chuck this up and really give a 5-up invo for that key turn.
Yeah, that's cool. Look, one thing I'm seeing with these strats, like we saw with the Marine book, there's a couple of expensive strats, but a lot of the Marine strats are like 1 CP little in your pocket strats. And same with Drakari, like they've all got all these little 1 CP, like when I need it, I've got this thing that can get me out of trouble. This book looks like it's got like more expensive strats, like the 2 and 3 CP load, that are gonna do a bit more. Like they're gonna do a lot, of course. But do you guys think CP is gonna be a big issue with this book?
I probably actually don't think so, because you are sort of, there are a lot of expensive strats in the build, but they're very locked to the sort of build that you want to do. So, for example, Cloud of Smoke, that's for a Speed Freak vehicle. They give out a 6-inch range of neg 1 to hit for all Speed Freak vehicles. You're not going to be using Hit 'em harder with Mega Knobs in your 12 buggy army. You're not going to be using Monster Hunters to hit harder with Beast Snagger boys. You really only got your sort of the exclusive, 2 or 3 strats for your build. And to be honest, you're going to be putting a lot of CP into sometimes those extra detachments to get those extra smash characters, to get the extra warlord trait, to get the extra relic. So I think it's probably not as hungry as it was in the previous edition, where you were just dumping shoot again, more DACA, force field booster. You're fighting again. You're using green tide. Like there was these ones in the previous game where you basically had budgeted out all your CP by turn 2, and you're like, shit, you're out. Whereas these ones are more locked to the build that you go with.
Yeah, that's fair. So it's kind of like you build your list, and then you pick the little pocket of stratagems that you're going to need throughout the game, and you just kind of leave the others out because you don't have the units. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
That's completely it. And it once again ties into this concept of they've simplified, building. They've simplified certain elements. But I actually think the list building of orcs is absolutely intricate. Like this codex it's really intricate. Like I'd love to see this in the hands of some of the local freaks like Eric. Like I know he doesn't like orcs, but whatever, fuck him. Like someone like that who can just read something like this and go, hang on, combo plus combo,
Yeah. Well,
I think we'll be keen to ride off the coattails of the premier orc players in Brisbane, like Aaron Green. And like Alex Terrison, who really have flown the flag in the last year and the darker days of the Codex. And to be honest, our mutual friend between me and Nick in Adelaide, Mr. Andy Penn, Damage.
Damage, the king. Mate, I can't wait to see what Damage does to this Codex. Adelaide.
I love that you both have the pleasure of playing Damage and like had it with your own army.
Yeah, that guy is like, honestly, like we can't do an Ork Codex podcast and not talk about Damage as like a whole segment of the Codex. That motherfucker needs a part of the Codex. He is literally Mork.
You're a big mech, Nick, but he is Gaz. I have a quick 30-second story about my game with Damage. So was floating along pretty well down at Uprising Adelaide, and I ran to Damage, and our friend Jordan and Liam had both played him from the podcast, and had both had fairly tough but excellent fun games into him. So I was looking forward to it, and it was a pretty tight game going down, and he'd taken While We Stand on the buggies, which at the time, before everyone was splitting up their units and taking While We Stand, I saw that and thought it was the smartest idea ever, because it was only about like 3 weeks after that FAQ had come out. And he had his last buggy sitting in the back corner. So I think I'm a big brain Cryptech, and I veil my Cryptech with the Entropic Lance, shoot him bottom of turn 4. It hits him, it goes through. He only has 3 wounds left, so I'm like, great, this is guaranteed. But he's Death Skulls, so he gets a 6-up invo. So you could tell he was putting all his war energy into this one dice, beer in hand at 10 a.m. in the morning, and he's just invoking all the green energy into this dice. He rolls a 6, and the entire convention center was just shaken by this man's war cry at the end of the turn. It was easily one of the funnest 40K games I've had, and it's the experience you want when you go into an Orc player. So I think the best thing that'll probably come out of this book is that Orc players will come back out in force, and you'll be able to have those fun experiences playing them and playing against them.
Yeah, that's it. And look, let's talk a bit about that. What do you guys think this book is going to do for like the meta in general, and what kind of things do you think that you'll see come out the most? Like, what will be more popular from this book?
Ooh, I think that's a really hard question. Like, the one thing that I love that's so orky, right, is that boys went to T5. So that instantly, like, you know, all the little iron hands, little lads are going, autocannons, let's get this going. Like, you know, crack out them, you know, strength 6, strength 7 weapons. But then ramshackle's also a thing. So strength 6 and strength 7, 2 damage weapons are -1 damage. So they're just not as good. And so you've got this really interesting balance in that. And so when I was first reading it, I was like, well, maybe these lists are going to be super balanced. Like, you want this balance of both worlds to kind of counter. But the more I've been talking to Nathan, the more I'm seeing value in just these really tailored, not skewed lists, but really leaning into a specific style and objective. I think it's going to be hard to shift, hey?
Yeah, like the list has like a plan on how it's going to go, and it's like a predetermined way of play. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of the buff characters, particularly Swiss, or even we didn't even touch on the specialist mobs, but there's one of those, basically a specialist mob. You replace one unit in each detachment with an ability that swaps out their clan culture and keyword. And there's one truck, boys, and it basically lets you move a truck, then disembark. So you're now a Harlequin, but you're an Ork. And you can do that with a Warboss. And I don't think we touched on the Warlord traits, but there's one I'm particularly impressed with, which is Brutal but Cunning, which is just Drukari's competitive edge, which is anything that doesn't inflict damage, you just attack again with it, which, when you consider how much buffs you can put on these characters and how many attacks they get and with the weapons they get to attack with, you just have heat seeker missiles coming out of these armies that might have 150 boys or 12 buggies or 6 trucks or however you want to build it. But I think those hard hitting characters will be at the center of what these armies are doing.
Wow, so stuff can shoot and charge after it comes out of that moving transport.
With truck, boys, it needs an FAQ, but because you can replacing the clan keyword, it actually can't. Truck boys can't legally get in a truck right now. Given how the truck data sheet is set up, but hopefully there's an FAQ incoming for that. But that's some hotness you should expect to see after that's initial cool. FAQ drops.
Jesus. All right. Well, if that's really it that you guys wanted to cover from the book, give us a rundown of some of the ideas that you guys are looking at when you're putting together an Ork list for yourselves. If you don't want to, as long as you're okay revealing all your secrets on the podcast.
Yeah, no, well, I know you've been writing lists like mad.
I've been pestering everyone that will listen in the last week about my ideas with these Ork lists. I think the Rucker Truck Swig Buggy's excellence for its points. I think, boys, as Nick was saying, you can either pivot one or two ways. You can either run them in sort of squads of 10 in trucks as MSU, as these durable OBSEC units that can run around the board and deny primary, or you can run them in 120, 150, which I think you need to skew that hard now because of the changes to the KFF, because of the changes to mob rule, where it's not just ignoring leadership basically on Orks. It's now sort of a bit harder to stay in the fight with your Orks than it previously was for these big hordes. So I think you're either going to see these buggy lists and truck boys and what have you, or you're going to see the 120 boys. I'm particularly leaning the sort of MSU buggy route with some hard-hitting characters. And to be honest, I'm still a big fan of the Death Skull culture as that sort of secondary detachment. Like, you can run that Goths, you can run the Freebooters, you can run the Evil Sons as that main detachment for their amazing relic and strats. But Death Skull's having that clan culture to make infantry OBSEC. Given what you can do with Storm Boys, they're now even better with their advance, where they auto-advance 6 with only a 50% chance of taking 1 mortal wound, rather than rolling a dice for every model. They're an amazing 5-man unit to just scoot up on an objective 18 inches and take it away from your opponent, and then making Mega Knobs or Commandos or Characters OBSEC. I think that's just amazing. And then you get the tech out of that first attachment with either the Evil Sons fight last, or the Freebooters anti-OBSEC, or the Goths hit everything as hard as possible with Gazgul and friends.
Oh, dude, I'm not looking forward to playing against that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. Like, and I kind of touched on my style at the start of it, but I'm really looking at similar to Nathan in that way, like looking at a hammer kind of detachment, and then an anvil detachment. I don't think any one of these detachments makes me want to just run a mono. And like Nathan's touched on very articulately, none of the stratagems that I'm looking at are things that I would need to invest a ton into. So having 10 CP honestly doesn't do a heap for me if I'm going deep into it. And now, obviously, we didn't talk about custom jobs either, but in all honesty, they're pretty rubbish. Like, if that is one part of the codex I'm a little bit disappointed in. Is that the custom jobs don't add a whole heap of flavor anymore. There's one for squig buggies, which gives +1 to wound for a single buggy, but they don't affect the whole unit anymore.
Unit.
So,
okay.
This ninth book version of basically point upgrades on specific units.
Yeah. So there's some cool stuff you could do, but they're just, in the previous version, that's where your CP was. Like, you were spending 2, 3, 4 CP a game before you'd even set a model on the table for that. So yeah, I'm looking at. I'm not a huge Goth player, so I'm probably going to stick with my Suns. Shit goes faster when it's red, and I do love it. So I'll probably be sticking with my Suns as my main unit, and then keeping my Deathskull, rather Outrider, or even potential Battalion. I don't really know what I'm going to do yet, but with some tech in there to swing around. I would like to make flash kits work, because I bought 30 of them at the start of last year, which was pretty awesome. I'm a dickhead. But anyway, so yeah, if I could make them work, I'll feel good.
Yeah, nice. Good
I think they're pretty excellent in trucks, to be honest. Like, you can stick 10 in a truck, drive them around, and you've suddenly got, 6 Scepters sitting on top of an Ork truck, just chilling.
Yeah, that's cute, but we both know that I'm really waiting for the Forge World appendix to come out and make squig offs with their Haldar special rule, which relevant for this codex, and then I will be running 30.
Mary Chan.
Love it.
But
yeah.
Yeah, sick, dude. Well, I'm very excited to see what comes out of this book, and even in just our local area, we got Nathie on our team for the next team event, so we'll see what he cooks up. But boys, that's pretty much an hour and a half of Ork content. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you guys wanted to finish with?
No, mate. I would just encourage anyone to, if you're an Ork player, just focus on unlearning what your army did. Like, that's like a big thing you want to look at with this codex. It's easy to look at it and be disappointed with what you're not seeing, but focus on unlearning. That's like a huge thing I've learned with these codexes. With Sisters, I got a bit disappointed, but with this one, I challenged myself to go, no, start afresh, and you are going to see some gangster stuff in these pages. It is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, nice. Nathan, anything you want to wrap up with?
I think just keeping an eye out for what some of the better players, not only like Larry, I touched on Aaron and Alex there, but around the world will be doing this codex in the next sort of 1-2 months. So I think it has a lot in it to deal with the current meta challenges that Drukhari and AdMech present. There's a lot of anti-horde, some cool anti-tank. There's some, as I said, sick characters in there that do a lot, and there's great tools to, most importantly in 40k, play the primary and play great secondary. So I think you'll have a lot of fun with this army, but it also has some meta-changing tools in it.
Yeah, no, I agree. From what you guys have educated me with in the last 90 minutes, it definitely looks incredible. But yeah, boys, thanks again for coming on. Look, for everyone listening, if you like what you heard, give us a like on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes. Our podcasts are also on YouTube for those who prefer that format. And we do have a Patreon to help cover our cost on www.patreon.com/thenormalblokes. Just a reminder again, we've got the Normal Blokes GT coming up in September. These lovely gentlemen will be there in all their Ork glory. So for those who are keen, we're nearly... I'm sound clipping that, man, and I'm going to use it for everything. I've got you saying wow once. And the pig sound. So, hey, for anyone who wants to attend the GT, please have a look on Down Under Pairings. You'll find the players pack with a link to the payment of the event. Payment does secure your spot, and we're almost half full, so it's very very important. If you're keen to go, shoot us a message and pay your fee, and that'll secure your spot. But gents, it's been a pleasure. Have a good evening. Wire on.
Have 30 boys in your backfield. Why, Mr. Bond?